Vital points in piano playing. Composite principles deduced from talks with eminent pianists and teachers. Section 1. How things are done, how others do them, and the reasons for the doing of them in one way and not in another, used to occupy my thoughts back as far as I can remember. As a child, I was fond of watching anyone doing fine needlework or beautiful embroidery, and tried to imitate what I saw, going into minutest details. This fondness for exactness and detail, when applied to piano study, led me to question many things, to wonder why I was told to do thus and so, when other people seemed to do other ways. In fact, I began to discover that everyone who played the piano played it in a different fashion. Why was there not one way? One memorable night, I was taken to hear Anton Rubinstein. What a marvelous instrument the piano was, to be sure, when its keys were moved by a touch that was at one moment all fire and flame, and the next smooth as velvet or soft and light as thistledown. What had my home piano in common with this wonder? Why did all the efforts at piano playing I had hitherto listened to sink into oblivion when I heard this master? What was the reason of it all? More artists of the piano came within my vision: Melig, Josephi, Mason, and others. As I listened to their performances, it was brought to me more clearly than ever that each master played the piano in the manner which best suited himself. At the same time, each and every player made the instrument utter tones and effects little dreamed of by the ordinary learner. What was the secret? Was it the manner of moving the keys, the size of hand, the length of finger, or the great strength possessed by the player? I had always been taught to play slowly and carefully so that I should make no mistakes. These great pianists had wonderful fearlessness. Rubinstein at least did not seem to care whether or not he hit a few wrong notes here and there, if he could only secure the speed and effect desired. Whence came his fearless velocity, his tremendous power? Essentials of pianism. Little by little I began to realize the essentials of effective piano playing were these: clear touch, intelligent phrasing, all varieties of tone, all the force the piano would stand, together with the greatest delicacy and the utmost speed. These things the artists possessed as a matter of course, but the ordinary student or teacher failed utterly to make like effects, or to play with sufficient clearness and force. What was the reason? In due course, I came under the supervision of various piano pedagogues. To the first I gave implicit obedience, endeavoring to do exactly as I was told. The next teacher said I must begin all over again, as I had been taught, all wrong. I had never learned hand position nor independence of fingers. These must now be established. The following master told me finger independence must be secured in quite a different fashion from the manner in which I had been taught, which was all wrong. The next professor said I must bend the finger squarely from the second joint, and not round all three joints as I had been doing. This so-called fault took several months to correct. To the next I am indebted for good orthodox, if somewhat pedantic, ideas of fingering and phrasing, for which he was noted. The hobby of the next master was slow motions with soft touch. This course was calculated to take all the vim out of one's fingers and all the brilliancy out of one's playing in less than 6 months. To the next I owe a comprehension of the elastic touch, with devitalized muscles. This touch I practiced so assiduously that my poor piano was ruined inside of a year, and had to be sent to the factory for a new keyboard. The next master insisted on great exactness of finger movements, on working up velocity with metronome, on fine-tone shading and memorizing. The desire for real knowledge. Such, in brief, has been my experience with pedagogues and teachers of the piano. Having passed through it, and in passing having tried various so-called and unnamed methods, I feel I have reached a vantage ground upon which I can stand and look back over the course. The desire to know the experience of the great artists of the keyboard is as strong within me as ever. What did they not have to go through to master their instrument? And having mastered it, what do they consider the vital essentials of piano technique and piano playing? Surely they must know these things if anyone can know them. They can tell, if they will, what to do and what to avoid, what to exclude as unnecessary or unessential, and what to concentrate upon. The night Rubinstein's marvelous tones fell upon my childish ears, I longed to go to him, clasp his wonderful hands in my small ones, and beg him to tell me how he did it all. I now know he could not have explained how, for the greater the genius, the more spontaneous its expression, the less able is such an one to put into words the manner of its manifestation. In later years, the same impulse has come when listening to Paderewski, Hoffman, and others. If they could only tell us exactly what is to be done to master the piano, what a boon it would be to those who are awake enough to profit by and follow the directions and experiences of such masters. In recognition of the strength of this desire, months after a half-forgotten wish had been expressed by me, came a request by Musical America to prepare a series of interviews with the world-famed pianists who were visiting our shores, and also with prominent teachers who were making good among us and who were proving by results attained that they were safe and efficient guides. Searching for truth. Never was an interesting and congenial labor undertaken with more zest. The artists were plied with questions which to them may have seemed prosaic, but which to the interrogator were the very essence of the principles of piano technique and piano mastery. It is not a light task for an artist to sit down and analyze his own methods. Some found it almost impossible to put into language their ideas on these subjects. They had so long been concerned with the highest themes of interpretation that they hardly knew how the technical effects were produced, nor could they put the manner of making them into words. They could only say, with Rubinstein, I do it this way, leaving the questioner to divine how, and then to give an account of it. However, with questions leading up to the points I was anxious to secure light upon, much information was elicited. One principle was ever before me, namely the truth. I desired to find out the truth about each subject and then endeavored to set down what was said, expressed in the way I felt would convey the most exact meaning. In considering the vital points or heads under which to group the subjects to be considered, the following seem to cover the ground pretty thoroughly. 1. Artistic piano technique, how acquired and retained. 2. How to practice. 3. How to memorize. 4. Rhythm and tone color in piano playing. Section 2. Hand position, finger action, and artistic touch. What technique includes? When we listen to a piano recital by a world-famous artist, we think, if we are musicians, primarily of the interpretation of the compositions under consideration. That the pianist has a perfect technique almost goes without saying. He must have such a technique to win recognition as an artist. He would not be an artist without a great technique, without a complete command over the resources of the instrument and over himself. Let us use the word technique in its large sense, the sense which includes all that pertains to the executive side of piano playing. It is in this significance that Harold Bauer calls technique an art in itself. Madame Bloomfield Zeisler says, piano technique includes so much. Everything goes into it: arithmetic, grammar, diction, language study, poetry, history, and painting. In the first stages there are rules to be learned, just as in any other study. I must know the laws of rhythm and meter to be able to punctuate musical phrases and periods. Pupils who have long since passed the arithmetic stage have evidently forgotten all about fractions and division, for they do not seem to grasp the time values of notes and groups of notes used in music. They do not know what must be done with triplets, dotted notes, and so on. Thus you see, technique includes a multitude of things. It is a very wide subject. Hand position. The first principle a piano teacher shows his pupil is that of hand position. It has been my effort to secure a definite expression on this point from various artists. Most of them agree that an arched position with rounded finger joints is the correct one. It was Paderewski who said, "Show me how the player holds his hands at the piano, and I will tell you what kind of player he is," showing the Polish pianist considers hand position of prime importance. I hold the hand arched and very firm. Ernest Schelling. The hand takes an arched position, the fingertips forming a curve on the keys, the middle finger being placed a little farther in on the key than is natural for the first and fifth. Catherine Goodson. The hand is formed on the keys in its 5-finger position, with arched knuckles. Ethel Legінська. The hand is formed in an arched position, with curved fingers and solidified. Carl Roeder. The hand, in normal playing position, must stand up in well-arched form, with fingers well-rounded. Thole Burnham. I first establish an arched hand position with firm fingers. Edwin Hughes. I teach arched hand position. Alexander Lambert. One must first secure an arched hand, with steady first joints of the fingers. Eleanor Spencer. The first thing to do for a pupil is to see that the hand is in correct position. The knuckles will be somewhat elevated and the fingers properly rounded. Bloomfield-Zeisler. A pupil must first form the arch of the hand and secure firm finger joints. I form the hand away from the piano at a table. Agnes Morgan. Leschetizky teaches arched hand position with rounded fingers, and all who have come under his instruction advocate this form. It is the accepted position for passage playing. A few pianists, notably Alfred Cortot and Tina Lerner, play their passage work with flat fingers, but this, in Miss Lerner's case, is doubtless caused by the small size of the hand. It is clear from the above quotations, and from many other opinions which could be cited, that the authorities agree the hand should be well arched, the end of the finger coming in contact with the key. Furthermore, there should be no weakness nor giving in at the nail joint. Finger action. The question of lifting the fingers seems to be one on which various opinions are held. Some pianists, like Godowsky for instance, will tell you they do not approve of raising the fingers, that the fingers must be kept close to the keys. It is noticeable, however, that even those who do not speak favorably of finger action use it themselves when playing passages requiring distinctness and clearness. Other players are rather hazy on the subject, but these are generally persons who have not gone through the routine of teaching. The accepted idea of the best teachers is that at the beginning of piano study positive finger movements must be acquired. Finger action must be so thoroughly grounded that it becomes second nature, a very part of the player, something he can never forget nor get away from. So fixed should it become that no subsequent laxity, caused by the attention being wholly centered on interpretation, can disturb correct position, condition, or graceful, plastic movement. For passage work I insist on finger action. The fingers must be raised and active to ensure proper development. I think one certainly needs higher action when practicing technique and technical pieces than one would use when playing the same pieces before an audience. Clarence Adler. Alexander Lambert speaks to the point when he says, I teach decided finger action in the beginning. Some teachers may not teach finger action because they say artists do not use it. But the artist, if questioned, would tell you he had to acquire finger action in the beginning. There are so many stages in piano playing. The beginner must raise his fingers in order to acquire finger development and a clear touch. In the middle stage, he has secured enough finger control to play the same passages with less action, yet still with sufficient clearness, while in the more or less finished stages the passage may be played with scarcely any perceptible motion. So thoroughly do the fingers respond to every mental requirement. It is this consummate mastery and control of condition and movement that lead the superficial observer to imagine that the great artist gives no thought to such things as position, condition, and movements. Never was there a greater mistake. The finest perfection of technique has been acquired with painstaking care, with minute attention to exacting detail. At some period of his career, the artist has had to come down to foundation principles and work up. Opinions may differ as to the eminence of Leschetizky as a teacher, but the fact remains that many of the pianists now before the public have been with him at one time or another. They all testify that the Viennese master will have nothing to do with a player until he has gone through a course of rigorous preparation spent solely in finger training, and can play a pair of Czerny etudes with perfect control and effect. Artistic touch. One of the greatest American teachers of touch was Dr. William Mason, who made an exhaustive study of this subject. His own touch was noted for its clear, bell-like, elastic quality. He remarked on one occasion, in regard to playing in public, "It is possible I may be so nervous that I can hardly walk to the piano, but once I have begun to play I shall hold the audience still enough to hear a pin drop, simply by the beauty of my touch and tone." Dr. Mason's touch specialties were pressure and elastic, or drawing off, touches. He found these gave both weight and crisp lightness to the tones. Mr. Tobias Matt Hay of London has given much time and thought to the study of touch and key mechanism. He says, "The two chief rules of technique as regards the key are, always feel how much the key resists you, feel how much the key wants for every note. Second, always listen for the moment each sound begins, so that you may learn to direct your effort to the sound only and not to the key bed. It is only by making the hammer end of the key move that you can make a sound." The swifter the movement, the louder the sound. The more gradual the movement, the more beautiful the quality of sound. For brilliant tone, you may hit the string by means of the key, but do not, by mistake, hit the key instead. Thule Burnham, a pupil of Mason and Leschetizky, has welded the ideas of these two masters into his own experience and simplifies the matter of piano touch as follows. Melody and coloratura hands. The position and condition of the hand varies according to the character of the music and the quality of tone you wish to produce. If you give out a melody, you want a full, luscious tone, the weight of arm on the key, everything relaxed and a clinging, caressing pressure of finger. Here you have the melody hand, with outstretched, flat fingers. On the contrary, if you wish rapid passage work with clear, bright, articulate touch, the hand must stand up in well-arched, normal playing position, with fingers well-rounded and good finger action. Here you have the technical, or coloratura hand. The distinction made by Mr. Burnham clears up the uncertainty about arched hand and articulate touch, or low hand and flat fingers. Both are used in their proper place, according to the demands of the music. The player, however, who desires a clean, reliable technique, should first acquire a coloratura hand before attempting a melody hand.